Hi, everybody. This is Susie deVille, and welcome to the Art of Designing Life Changing Travel. I am the founder and CEO of the Innovation and Creativity Institute, as well as the author of Buoyant, the Entrepreneur's Guide to Becoming Wildly Successful, Creative, and Free. And this book is available right now for pre order and will be published on September 6th. So I recently came back from a 3-week adventure in France where I had the time of my life and ate the most incredible food and saw the most beautiful art and had one incredible experience after another. And while I was traveling, and then also after I came back, I had a lot of people asking me questions about how I made the choices that I did to map out my trip. How did I plan the itinerary? How did I find these experiences that I enjoyed? What influenced my decision making? What recommendations do I have for them for their own adventure? And so, what I decided to do was distill everything that I have learned over 30 years of traveling overseas and put it together in one sort of set of tips so that it could help you with your own travel planning. So, what I'd like to start with is this sort of beginning point that most people tend to skip when they are planning their adventure or their travel experiences. And that is to get very clear first on what it is that you love, what it is that you want to have happen, what do you want more of in your life, and to ensure that you're getting very clear on anything that you're craving, anything that you're dreaming about, and doing that work first before you actually start to think about what destinations you're interested in, what kinds of specific experiences you want to have while you're away. So I would encourage you all to get out your journal and take some time to ask yourself those questions, starting with this. Number one, what am I craving right now? And what do I want to connect with? And third, what kinds of experiences do I desire? So if you take a few minutes, and actually if you're watching the replay or you're watching this live, I would have some paper and a pen handy, and go ahead and just very quickly write down, because we actually know very clearly what we're craving. We're masters at denying what is true for us, and we tend to sort of push down or quash what it is that's calling to our hearts. So if you can get clear first and stay true to what comes up for you and write it down, that will serve you incredibly well as you go forward with planning the rest of your journey. So when I was thinking about my own trip, and this was back in the late fall of last year, I started thinking about what I wanted to do when I went in the springtime of this year. And I was very clear on several things. For me, I really wanted adventure. I definitely wanted to have amped up creativity experiences. I wanted to fuel myself with inspiration, beauty, quiet, and stillness, as well as vibrancy. And I also wanted to have some time where I could just sit and do nothing, just to rest and rejuvenate after a very long stretch of about 12 months of just almost constant work. I really wanted an opportunity to step away from that and just fill the well for me and take a nap in the middle of the day, have a 3-hour lunch if I wanted to do that, sleep in if I wanted to do that. So I didn't want to pack in so many things into the itinerary that there was no breathing room for rest and rejuvenation, as well as an opportunity to take advantage of something that maybe I didn't even know was available in a particular city or location. So, because I had a lot of flexibility and white space into my itinerary, I could make those decisions on the fly while I was traveling. So, what is it for you? What is it that you really want? What is it that is calling to your heart as you're thinking about what the ultimate travel experience is for you right now? And that, of course, changes over time. So, maybe a trip that you took 3 years ago that you really loved and you had a great time, maybe that's not the trip you're asking for right now. So think about what's relevant and true for right now for you and write down some ideas and see what comes up and what fosters your own sort of sparks your own thinking. After you have everything written down, then kind of put it aside for several days. And then maybe this weekend or sometime next week, have a look at that paper and ask yourself what else should be on this list. What have you forgotten? What are you maybe denying yourself because you think, oh, it's going to be too expensive, or it would take too much trouble, or I don't have XYZ to be able to do the thing that's calling to my heart. Well, I would counsel you to stay true to your vision and not talk yourself out of what you have on your list, because most likely the thing that is scaring the pants off of you to do is the thing that you absolutely should be doing. So don't censor yourself and don't water down what it is that comes up for you. Um, so the other thing that I did when I was thinking about my trip was I really wanted to choose the sense of being free. And again, having a very loose yet defined itinerary was a very strong key for me on that front. Also, I didn't want to be feeling like I was rushing from place to place. I really wanted to have time to sit in a cafe in the sixth arrondissement in Paris for an entire afternoon and sketch something if I wanted to do that without this inner drive to check off all kinds of things on a list. I have to see this or I have to go do that. Now, I did go do things, I did have incredible experiences, but I didn't have jam packed days. And that was very key for me. Okay, step number two is what are my creative constraints for this trip? In other words, you have all of these opportunities, all of these decisions to make, all of these choices. How in the world do you actually go about making the choices for you that fit with what you want? So, my decision making on my creative constraint was I wanted to follow the masters in the the country of Paris. I mean, the country of France. And I started in Paris and I went to a place that has famous artists' work done digitally. So I went to see the Kandinsky and the Cezanne exhibition. And then as I traveled down to the south of France, I actually picked up Picasso and Van Gogh and Matisse, Julia Child, Frank Gehry, et cetera, et cetera. So that to me drove how I was going to choose the places that I was going to visit was this creative constraint of following the masters. So I wanted to see very clearly how these painters and how these artists were affected by the south of France and that landscape and that very incredibly beautiful light. How did that influence their and shape their creativity as well as their art? So that was what I was interested in. And so I designed my itinerary to really mirror what I was interested in the most. So you might ask yourself, do I want to go see a series of beautiful beaches? Do I want to immerse myself in one fantastic art experience after another? Do I want to go whitewater rafting or zip lining or rappelling or hiking? Do I want to have culinary experiences? Do I want to take certain courses and classes? What is it that is calling to you? And then, third, after you have your creative constraint nailed down, Then you can start to do your research phase. So don't do what most people do, which is to start researching before you really know what it is that you are truly seeking to have happen, and making sure that it's in alignment with who you are and what it is that you love. So as you start to do your research, and I just actually get online and I start dreaming up things. Best cooking class in Paris. Most weird thing to see in Provence. And I just start taking the time, and I'll do this research sometimes over 2, 3 weeks. And I give myself plenty of time to discover things that are not going to be in guidebooks, things that most people maybe don't know about. I will ask people who may be familiar with certain areas if I have a specific question in mind. Who would you recommend that I follow in Provence, artistically? Who is, maybe there's someone who's not on my list that I have missed. What we tend to do is ask people for recommendations on what to see and do in a certain city or place before we're clear on what it is that we want. So, and of course, I understand that because we're starting with zero and we're just asking for people to kind of help fill the void. But that can direct you into a place that maybe isn't what you're after. So, for example, if you were to ask me, without having done your pre work, what should I do when I'm in Paris? Well, I might advise you to do all kinds of things that aren't your cup of tea. And you may have this burning passion to go to the Louvre, which have zero desire to do. I've been to the Louvre, yes, but I don't want to spend 4 to 5 hours in a huge museum that is overwhelming and super crowded. I want to have a very sort of um, constrained or restricted or narrow art experience and go deep into maybe one or two artists before moving on to doing something else during the day. So I don't want to spend half a day or a whole day in a museum. But maybe that's your cup of tea, and I don't recommend that to you, and maybe you miss it. So know what it is that you want first, then seek for people to help fill in the gaps. Now it's time to actually map out and pace your itinerary. And I want to show you my screen so that you can see. I want to show you what, um, okay, here we go. I hope you can see my screen. Let's see. Oh, nope. Google says negative on sharing the screen. Okay, so actually, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to show it to you this way. Not as slick as showing it to you on my screen, but this is the actual piece of paper that I used to map out and plan my entire 3-week trip. This is as unsophisticated as it gets. No software required. A piece of notebook paper and a pen was what I used here. So you can see I started April 24th, departing Atlanta, going to Charles de Gaulle. And then I knew I wanted X number of days in Paris. And then so I started mapping out chunks. I wanted to then go to Nice, and then I wanted to go on to Arles, and then Aix-en-Provence, Antibes, and then to Châteauneuf-de-Grasse before going back to Nice and then flying back home from Paris. You can see that I hope you can see this. You can see that I have very few notes about what I'm doing. I'm clear on what is a travel day. I'm clear on how I'm basically going to get from place to place. Am I going to take a train? Am I flying? Am I going to go through Uber? What am I doing? How am I going to figure that part out? But that's it. This is all I had planned out. And I have the artists here. You can see that there are, sorry about this. I hope I'm not making your car sick. You can see I've got Van Gogh, I've got Matisse, Cezanne, Picasso, et cetera, et cetera. But that's it. That was as sophisticated and detailed as that itinerary was. So I would suggest that you do the very same thing. Again, after you've done this crucial inner work and made sure that you know exactly what you're after before you even start researching your destinations and before you map out your itinerary. Again, we tend to do with our itinerary the same thing that we do with our suitcases, which is to cram in and then sit on it to zip it in order to be able to get it to close. You don't want your itinerary to feel like a mirror of your already very busy life. It should, in many ways, represent the opposite of your existence right now, because that's the kind of experience where you're going to be able to hear yourself think. You're going to be able to immerse yourself in opportunities and experiences that inspire you, reconnect you with your creativity, bring you back online, and open you up to new ideas and your intuition and imagination. So when we leave breathing room in these itineraries, and we're very careful to make sure that the places and the experiences that we have selected really fuel and inspire and excite us, then we actually have a life-changing travel experience ahead of us. Again, less is more. And a rule of thumb that I came up with a couple of years ago that I highly recommend is that you limit your deep experiences to one a day. So, for example, I went to the Dior gallery in Paris, which was completely amazing. It was some of the most beautiful work that I have ever seen in one of the most beautiful museums, if not the most beautiful museum I've ever been in. And I spent hours in there. And then I wanted to just go and sit in the park or the cafe after that and just let it soak in and just let it affect me. Let it fuel my thinking. Let it change my soul. Let it drive new ideas and not go, okay, we're off to the next thing, because nothing can land when we're jumping from one thing to another. So definitely less is more, and definitely give yourself time to assimilate what it was that you just experienced. I even had multiple times in my 3-week adventure where I needed to have time to process something that I just ate. Just the flavors. I mean, I wanted to understand what was in this dish that made it so extraordinary. What were the spices? What kind of olive oil? What kind of cheese? What kind of vegetables? What's happening here? How did they do this magical thing? So I wanted to even have time to assimilate meals and assimilate understanding maybe what a chef's secrets were. And also just having time to have chance encounters, because I did travel alone for the majority of the time. And of course, when you do that, you are adopted by people who are around you in the cafes. And so I love that. So you want to have time to have these conversations with people and meet them and share what you're seeing, and maybe learn more about what they have discovered. It's a wonderful opportunity too to really get a handle on some of the less advertised aspects of the culture, which are phenomenal and definitely should not be missed. Um, the next thing is, I would recommend, if you don't have a journaling practice, absolutely begin one. I talk about journaling practices in my book and how important it has been for me. I believe it is one of the most important things for entrepreneurs and creators, is to have a journaling practice. So if you don't have a journaling practice, you can start one on your trip and let it become a habit while you're traveling, and then you can continue it when you return. If you are already a big journaler, get a special journal to take with you on your trip. Nothing too big or unwieldy because you definitely want to keep it less cumbersome and easy to tote around. But bring your journal with you and record what's going on in your mind. What have you seen? What are you feeling and thinking? What is coming up for you? What are you noticing? What questions do you have? What is being revealed to you? And if you journal all of this while you're in the moment, you won't miss it. It won't evaporate because when you come back to the busyness and the crush of your daily life, when you return from your trip, number one, you're going to feel behind. Number two, you're going to be a little jet lagged. And number three, you're going to be sort of scrambling to get errands done and catch up, so to speak. Well, the minute we get back into that vortex of doing, we get further and further and further away from what happened to us when we were traveling. And so your journal is a wonderful way to keep in touch with that experience and to keep reminding yourself, right, I need to remember that I love XYZ or that experience that I had in that boutique or in that museum or on the street or in that cafe or meeting that stranger on the plane. So definitely keep a journal and fill it up. Okay, before we get into some travel tips, what I'd like to do is talk with you about how you can actually win a trip to Paris. So I have put on this screen here the URL to my website, which is innovationandcreativityinstitute.com, and then /book. And so that's going to take you to the page on my website that tells you all about Buoyant. Now, if you pre-order 1 to 100 books, you can actually, for every book that you purchase, be entered in to win a Paris sweepstakes, to win a trip of a lifetime, actually. And so all the details of what the trip actually includes and what the prize includes, as well as the dates of the trip, are on my website. So what you do is that you pre-order the book, and then there's a form for you to fill out on my website so that I know that you've pre-ordered it and I can enter you into the contest. There's also some information there and the official rules that you'll want to check out, as well as an opportunity to enter the contest without having to make a purchase. So all of that is there for you to have a look at. And then if you have questions, please email me at susie@innovationcompass.com, and I'm happy to answer anything that you need. But anywhere from 1 to 100 purchases will get you anywhere from 1 to 100 entries into the sweepstakes. And I will be announcing the winner of the sweepstakes during my live launch on the day of my book release, which is September 6th. Okay, so let's talk about some travel tips because I want you to be aware of some things that I think that might be helpful for you as you're going along. Number one, remember that it's important in this day and age where there are a lot of flight cancellations and so forth. Do your best to consolidate your flights. And if you have to have a connecting flight, give yourself ample time between those to make your connection, because I'm seeing a lot of people who are being very frustrated with travel delays, losing losing their opportunity to make their connecting flights, etc. So if you can do a nonstop flight, absolutely do that. If you can get to the airport with plenty of time so that you don't get a delay there, that will help ease the sometimes stress of that part of the trip. Next is, again, pack light. Take half of what you think you absolutely have to have. You want to have a bag that's easy for you to maneuver with, that you can get on and off trains, that you can throw into the back of an Uber without breaking somebody's back. And you don't want to be dragging this massive beastly bag around with you. Trust me, you do not need what you think you need. If you happen to miss out on something that you're desperate for, you can always grab a sweater or something like that while you're traveling, or whatever it is that you think that you need. But pack totally light. You will be so happy that you did. Plus, you'll have room to take home souvenirs if you do that. Next is shoes, shoes, shoes. Make sure that you take a really good care of your feet. You don't want to miss out on the opportunity to be walking through these incredible places, and you don't want to be ridden with blisters. So make sure that you have good, comfy, well supporting shoes. Next is be really keen to engage with the local people, learn about the culture, pick up local magazines and newspapers, talk with people in stores, talk with people in restaurants and bars, talk with people in the museums, strike up conversations wherever you go. But you have an opportunity to let people show you what they're so proud of in their country, proud of in their town, proud of in their city. Next is do your best to let yourself get lost on purpose and discover corners that maybe most people don't know about. I tend to kind of hang back and watch where local people go. I will get information online about restaurants and destinations that may be really musts, and then I'll also just watch and see where do the people go who are all definitely local, as they're getting off of work. What cafe are they heading to? And I will just follow them there. Next, skip the tourist lines. You do not want to be standing for 5 hours to go to the top of the Eiffel Tower or whatever the equivalent of that is on your trip. So do your work ahead of time. And going back to this itinerary, this is a great opportunity to map out, okay, here are the musts that we want to see that are going to require a ticket. Map it into your itinerary, and then make sure, because for example, in Paris, a lot of museums are closed on Mondays. So you're going to want to make sure that your itinerary fits those musts that are on your list. And then go ahead and book your ticket so that you have it. You can just go right in. You skip the line. Next is consider courses and classes. I have done this a lot. And I have taken art classes, I have taken cooking classes, I have taken just a variety writing courses. So think about, do I want to spend an afternoon learning how to make a croissant? Or do I want to spend an afternoon learning a new art technique? Or do I want to understand more about something to do with fashion or something to do with a local custom? So see what bubbles up for you. And I highly recommend courses and classes while you're traveling. I get this question all the time. Do not be afraid to travel alone. I travel alone all the time. And this last trip, I was alone for two weeks and had a group with me for the last week. And it was a wonderful blend of both solitude and group fun. So traveling is totally safe by yourself. You just have to use the same kind of sense that you use here in America or wherever you are. You don't go trotting down narrow little dark alleyways at 12 o'clock at night by yourself. But certainly I will go absolutely anywhere in a city on my own that I know is a good safe area where a lot of people are, and I have no qualms going to restaurants or cafes alone. It's very fun, and again, you are most of the time you are adopted by local people who are thrilled to have an opportunity to meet somebody. Next, you're going to want to uh, stay organized, keep copies of your passport in a different location than where you keep your passport. Also, have all of your travel documents in one place so that you're not scrambling with panic as you're trying to get through the airports, etc. Next, learn a few key phrases in the local language of the places that you are going to. This is so important and it will vastly change how you are received in that country. If you walk in and you greet somebody with their language and you were able to say please and thank you and how much is this or may I have just some basic phrases in the local language, your entire experience of that travel adventure is going to deepen and be rich and fun, and you will be treated with such warmth and openness. Next is, and finally, I want to say your experience traveling is going to 100% mirror the energy and the attitude that you have while you're there. Be kind, be patient, be gracious, and be compassionate. And everybody will completely mirror that back to you. You will have such gracious hosts and hostesses. They want you to have a wonderful time. And they will try to connect you with things that maybe most people aren't aware of, let you in on little secrets or tips or um, generous little gifts. I have had just this last trip in France. I had so many delightful moments because I was so delighted. I was so excited and so appreciative of what I was experiencing, and the people in the cafes and the restaurants and the hotels and the shops everywhere I went knew how much fun I was having and how delighted I was, and all they wanted to do was amp it up even more. It was incredible. But if you go around and you're grumpy and you're whining and you're short with people and you don't say, for example, in France, bonjour, when you walk into a store, you're going to get a big brick wall and you're going to be finding exactly what you think you're going to see. So if you think you're going to find rude French people, that's precisely what you're going to find. People in France are not rude. They are not cold. They are not aloof. They just want simple, gracious manners and etiquette and kindness, like we all do. And this is true around the world. So when you step out into your adventure, step out with an open heart and an open mind and look for what can fill you up in brand new ways. And look for ways that you can connect with people while you're traveling and leave some of your habits and rituals behind, that maybe are not serving you any longer, and see what new habits and rituals you can put in their place that really bring your energy up and connect you back to the heart of who you are and are in alignment with what it is that you crave. I hope that you have a wonderful journey and that you are willing to go on any adventure that calls to your heart. And if you have questions on anything to do with your own trip or how to enter the Paris sweepstakes or more about my book or the work that I do, please email me at susie@innovationcompass.com. And thank you again for being with me today. It has been a lot of fun, and I wish you wonderful travels. Bon voyage.